First class services by your public.
Excuse me.
You're about to enter alien nation.
Okay, y'all know the rules. I'll talk, y'all listen, and then go home. No, go ahead. What's up? Anybody? First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. It goes to tell you, man, I mean, nobody here can fight for me in the ring physically, but it shows the respect that of course I've earned to be able to still bring a lot of top writers from Philadelphia and tri-state area to come out to cover history, basically. And this fight has a lot of politics and a lot of historic things wrapped up around it that I never had in any fight in a long time. And I spoke on two things, and one is, of course, Golden Boy in the Cold War, and then second, I was the last fighter that left that was on HBO that's still assigned to Golden Boy. Now I'm the first fight to reunite that relationship back to a flaming, in a good way, fire flame to be able to do what we're doing November 8th, starting big fights that people want to see in every division, hopefully. On our end, there's no guarantee that maybe others, promotional companies, will start doing the same, as matching the best with the best, even if it's their own. So I'm glad everybody showed respect from a guy that deserved the respect, me, to be here now, to be able to witness a little bit of training and any answers anybody have. I'm willing to give my honest opinion about what the answer is, the question is, rather. So that's you.
Oscar said you're fighting without pressure because you've already accomplished so much and you're going to be in the Hall of Fame anyway. Do you agree with that?
From what Oscar is saying, again, in case y'all didn't hear, Oscar made a statement that I'm fighting without pressure. I'm fighting without pressure from Oscar's point of view, and we did talk about this, is the pressure of the unknown. And the unknown is the business part. The unknown is the rewards that comes after taking on such a challenge. And so, to me, that's always been sort of, believe it or not, even in my height of careers, of the Trinidad fight 14 years ago, there was nowhere to go after I won that fight. And you expect, wait a minute, Bernard, that was one of the biggest upsets and the biggest fights. What do you mean? Yeah, but trust me, it didn't happen until I beat De La Hoya. But there's no pressure on that side of it, on the political side, on the politics side of it. But to me, I curate pressure for myself for every fight, is to understand, to never to underestimate or take anyone lightly, whether it was Sergey or who the last 2 or 3 opponents. So Oscar is right about that part of pressure. So I can concentrate on, even though I was successful dealing with a lot of things years and years and years and years, as most people in this crowd covered me for many years. And I overcame those things, and they became more of a force to help me. I don't have a lot of those things no more, and I still continue to win, because I used them when they was used, the time to use them, and now that became old, and those problems are not there, you have to reinvent yourself and work on things that you know that you can still be successful as you was back then. So I'm really mentally, physically ready for this challenge come November 8th.
Is there any different, anything different that you need to do?
Anything?
Yeah, that
You want to know anything different?
that you need to do that you've done in the past.
Well, what I believe that the difference comes in the execution, because to think about what you have to do different before the job at hand is sort of keeping yourself up at night when you should be sleeping. See, one thing that I feel that you cannot, or you should not rather, worry about is things that you can't change. And so I don't, this is where my age really comes into play here. I respect, but I don't underestimate, but I also don't worry about things that I don't know about, because you don't know about it. And so I prepare to do what I know how to do best. And for 20 plus years, going on 3 decades, that rule of code has never betrayed me. As they say, sometimes too old to teach old dog new tricks. Certain things I do agree, and certain things I submit to being old at. That's one of them. That's actually one of them. I don't get caught up into what another guy might and can do. I train, I study, I know me. There's no fighter in the world that I will not put my record up to beat them any given day in this era, in any class. And that's how I feel. And that's not being cocky, that's being confident. And to be confident, you have to have a track record and put that work in to be taken seriously. You can talk about it, but to be about it is a whole new different concept.
Bernard, are you a better fighter than you were when you were defending that middleweight title all those times, or are you just a smarter fighter who's figured out better ways to win?
I think I'm the smarter fighter that think a better way to win now, because even with success of being young, there's a lot of things that now that I look at when I was young, even though I was successful, I waste a lot of time. But those things you have to go through, and that's why we are young before we are old. And that's why we are immature before we become mature. These stages are set by the times of life, and so you can get there before he or she, but at the end of the day, y'all all gonna get there when it's time for you to get there. And that's the thing I realize in life, not just sport, is that when I look back at my last, that's a great question, to the last 5 years of my career, and the way I feel, and the less hours I spend in the gym compared to when I was younger, I say I'm fighting 10 rounds or 12 round fights and 3 times 12 while I'm training for 4 hours. See, these are the things when you do when you're young and you're dumb and you got all this energy and you just run and you realize I'm training for a fight that's less than an hour, 4 hours. You would believe that's an overkill. But as you get older and you understand, and somehow some don't survive that long torture and some survive it, and if you get the knowledge to understand, like, don't you know you gotta reverse that now? I wouldn't be here now if I was thinking that same concept without growth and development now. If I was training the way I was training, even though I was successful 20 or 15 years ago, I'd be burnt out. I'd be overtrained, overthinking, overtrained. There's a lot of college people in here that studied that test and thought they was ready, and they did study. They overstudied, and they flunked the whole damn test. They know they in the crowd. And they had to go, no, seriously, but they had to go back and they had to take a deep breath. They had to realize that, wait a minute, I'm making this thing out to be too serious. It's keeping me up at night. You know what I mean? I went through 15 cups of coffee, trying to stay up and understand, and it's busting my head. Let me just step back from it, take a deep breath, and relax and chill, and do something else for a minute, and then get back to it, and you'll be fresh as a daisy. That's the spiritual side. And that's a side that young folks and young fighters and young people don't get right away. And some will never get. Got this part of life and part of game. I'm glad I got both of them. And so I know the difference between, even with success, Nazim, between this and between that. I'm having the best time in the last 5-6 years that I had in my whole career, even with the accolades of success.
So
The best time.
Because you don't have any pressure on you? You don't feel like you have...
You know why? It's because over 60% of the population in America is over 50. And I'm 2.5 months of 50 years old, and I know that's a statement that's going to make a brand and a movement that's going to be way beyond what I do in the ring. Can you imagine that if they got a halftime in football, and they got a halftime in basketball, and they got a halftime in certain sports where you got 4 quarters or 2 quarters, and you at the second half with respect and dignity, just like the first half. And I ain't gambling on living another 50 years after January 15th of 2015. You mean to tell me that's nothing I can celebrate 2 victories of the turn of another chapter, another age bracket, another halftime of life? Why do you think that most people, when they turn 50, they celebrate, right? True? Why is 50 is so significant to celebrate? You can celebrate 50 like you can celebrate 20 like you celebrate 50. You can celebrate 30. But why is 50? Because 50 is the halftime. See, because nobody expects to live another 50 years, right? So you look at the numbers don't lie, they never do. They get churned back sometime, daylight savings, and they get put forward, right? But they never change, still goes forward. So when you look at me, look at that time, and look at that time saying, you know what? When you do the things that the alien or the execution or whatever you know me by, B-Hop, when you look at the lifestyle and you look at the discipline in that man, you would say preserved. You would say well kept. You would say, yeah, it's 1965, clean in the garage. But the engine and the mechanics are brand new because he took care of it. He got those bolts oiled. He got the car cleaned out, the pistons cleaned, the sparks plugs are new. You're looking at the car in a year, but you ain't pop the engine to understand that when you look at the car and you open the inside, you start seeing the mechanics in there, you look and say, my God, that 2014 that been ran down to the ground, that haven't had a tune-up or oil change in 9 months, that haven't had the brakes changed, the wheels rotated, what car is old? The 65 or the 2014? Why y'all humans don't think that way? Why y'all humans don't think that way? But the alien do. See, because old to y'all is a number, but it's not the person. And that's your biggest mistake.
So how do you rotate the tires?
Well, you rotate them. You rotate the tires by taking them off and you rotate them to the next tire. Or you change them.
Come in your legs.
Bernard, you mentioned.
What are your thoughts on your opponent this time around? You've had so many opponents over the years. This specific one, this specific fight, what are your thoughts on it?
He's the same thought that most people in this crowd know and wrote about. I read it. He's a dangerous puncher. He has over 90% knockout ratings. And anybody that fights this guy has an opportunity to not be the same. That's real. And we don't want to take nothing away from what this guy is now. Because when November 9th, which is Sunday, we don't want no one saying differently what they said prior to November 8th. See, you can't have both sides, even though you might want both sides. This man is a threat to anybody. This won't be an easy fight. It might look easy to you. But there's a lot of other things in my life and my career, and I always believe I'm fighting politics. It's just my belief. And I understand that not only I got to beat the man, I got to beat a lot of people. That's the way I operate. And when I go to bed, I know a lot of people go to bed upset. And so, they're either going to watch me win or they're going to watch me lose. And that game, I don't mind playing. Because I understand me, and I know me. I don't believe in luck. I don't believe in this is your time, this ain't your time. I believe in whoever brings what they really believe, the best of themselves, and understand that they're willing to sacrifice whatever they have to do to be victorious will win. That's plain and simple. That's plain and simple. And that's how I feel.
Do you prefer if fans and writers root for you, or do you prefer them against you? It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because I stopped letting people for many, many years in my life. And this is what wisdom becomes now of age. It doesn't really bother me one way or the other whether somebody root for me or they don't. Like, I'm not controlled by people's opinion about me. When my kids see me, and when my kids can read and write and go to private schools that's $20,000 a head a year, kindergarten, first grade, not high school. When my family, who I know at the end of the day, when I step through that door, and when time comes, and they look at me, with respect of what I've laid a path for them to be. That's the only thing that matters. Because if you are dictated or motivated in that part, because I'm motivated by what people might do or say or think, but certain things you just can't be motivated by that action. Because it would never stop. Because no matter who you be, no matter how many people you upset, you're always going to have something else. And so when you're dealing with that scenario and you're dealing with that type of gin, you're wasting your time. But I ain't always think that way. So I must tell you, I've grown too. I ain't always think that way. Because no matter what, there's always going to find some Looney Tune that's going to tell you that wall is not the color that wall is. Because that's how it is. You don't agree, I don't agree, but that's how it is. So you do what you do, and the people that cares and the people that you care about, and you leave that legacy. And when it's all said and done, then you let time and what's going on in that time duplicate or beat that record. Because for me to be able to say to everybody in the world that no one expected me not only to become what I've became, but they thought I'd be going 10, 15 years ago. And so I became their worst nightmare. And the more threat is that I still got my scruples, and I still got my senses, and I still got my intellect, and I still have my swag, as you can say, to be able to articulate and communicate, and now I become a bigger force. See, when you do this, and then you out of this,
And now you involved in other entities that normally is not the makeup of where we come from. You sort of raise eyebrows and ears, and some would embrace it with love, and some would embrace it with fear. It reminded me of the story I was watching the other day where one slave knew how to read and the other ones didn't. Why did it irritate the masters? Why did they was threatened? Because Fufu could read and Bobo couldn't. So they had to cut him out, which to them was a cancer. Because if he tell he and he their value, you can't devalue them. So when you know your value, whether you're a housewife or a husband, fighter, worker, we know your value, that's called negotiations. You can go to the table with confidence and strength. You might not get it in spite of, but at least you know your value. But if I gotta tell you your value, I guarantee you it won't be what you think it is. These are the things they teach at universities. I learned it on the University of Streets of North Philadelphia, right outside that door. And guess what? They don't give you a ribbon and a PhD and a hat, and they don't throw their hat up in the air. Bullets, but not hats. It's a whole different era. And the crazy thing is I tapped into the other world, so now I got both of them. Out there, right? In corporate America. That makes me double trouble. And then I can fight third. That makes me triple trouble. Let me get my work on so y'all gonna watch me sweat at 2.5 more months from 50, and y'all can understand why some of y'all might need to change your damn diet before I come get you.